Did you know that last year, in 2024, there were 17 superhero projects released? Compare that to just 20 years prior, in 2004, and there were only 6. It seems like every year, we get more and more of these projects. But as a society, we've all started to get some superhero fatigue. And while it might seem like there's a new comic book movie every month, you might actually be surprised to learn they've been on the decline. In 2024, superhero movies alone grossed around $2.2 billion at the box office, which is obviously a shit ton of money. But just 6 years before that, in 2018, superhero films brought in over $8.5 billion, almost 4 times as much money. But obviously, it isn't as black as white as that, because in 2024, there were only 5 films, 2 of which were Sony bombs. Meanwhile, in 2018, there were 9. But even if you don't count Kraven the Hunter and Madam Web, the average revenue per film is over $250 million more in 2018. There are other factors such as the effects of COVID on theaters and the fact that 2018 was stupidly stacked that year for that genre, but still, it begs the question, how did we get here? It was kind of hard to track down every theatrically released comic book movie, but from the years 1978 to 1999, I could only find about 23, which is about 1 per year, but of the top 100 highest grossing films of the genre, only 7 of them came from that period, and of the top 60 highest grossing films, none of the movies during that time qualify. Superhero movies before 2000 were very hit or miss, and many of them flopped at the box office. They were seen as too campy and made for children, but things were slowly changing. We were getting grittier and edgy films, like 1992's Batman Returns. Audiences were starting to show up to watch these movies, but they were largely being led by just 2 characters, Batman and Superman. Of the 7 movies which made the highest grossing films list, 6 of them were centered around Batman or Superman. The only exception being Jim Carrey's Mask. Shout out to him, I love that movie. But all that changed the next year in 2000. Marvel decided to throw their hat in the ring and dropped X-Men, which made almost $400 million on a budget of just $75, proving that a non-DC movie could do well, and opening the door for the movie this video is about. But before we get there, we have to zoom out a bit because following the success of 1978's Superman, Marvel decided they wanted to bring Spider-Man to the big screen. A producer named Roger Corman was given the rights to make a movie based on the character. He teamed up with Orion Pictures, a film production company responsible for films such as The Silence of the Lambs, The Terminator, and The Addams Family. They brought in Stan Lee, the creator of Spider-Man, to write the screenplay. But it all fell apart after the failure of Superman 3 when Corman lost faith in the project. He tried to cut the budget for the film, which led to Stan Lee leaving the project.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
But a few years later, in 1985, the rights were acquired by the Cannon Group for $225,000.
$100? The ad said $3,000.
The company didn't really understand the character, and when they wrote the script, Peter Parker was depicted as a photographer who's subjected to a mad scientist experiment, which transforms him into a human tarantula. However, when Stan Lee got a hold of the script, he demanded that they rewrite it and make it more accurate to the source material. In this next rewrite, Peter gets his power from a failed science experiment while working for Doc Ock, who plays his mentor turned villain. Things were moving pretty smoothly this time around. Stan Lee gave his stamp of approval for this new script and even wanted to play J. Jonah Jameson, and to play Peter, they were in talks with Tom Cruise. Everything was looking good, and Cannon gave the film a $15 to $20 million budget. But while all this was going on, in the background, Cannon was facing some financial struggles. In 1987, they dropped 2 superhero films, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, and Master of the Universe, both of which flopped hard, losing the company a lot of money and turning them away from the genre. They cut the budget for their Spider-Man project from $20 million all the way down to $7. The director they had hired for the film was unwilling to compromise and stepped down.
But you can't do this to me.
Ultimately, this led to the project being cancelled and Cannon being acquired by another film distribution firm. Menahem Golan, the man who acquired the rights to Spider-Man while he was running Cannon, became the CEO of 21st Century Film Corporation. He extended his rights to produce a Spider-Man film and attempted to revive the project. He used the same script, storyboard, and even gave the film the same budget as when he was at Cannon to save money. He was so passionate about the project that he even sold part of the company to fund the film. One of those assets being Carolco Pictures, an independent film studio which somehow, thanks to Stan Lee, had James Cameron, the man behind Titanic and Avatar, approach them to direct Spider-Man. Cameron pitched the film as a darker and more mature take on the character, while having the villains of the film be Electro and Sandman. Get this, he also wanted to have a sex scene with Peter and MJ on top of the Brooklyn Bridge. Sadly though, we were robbed of this, because when he found out that Carolco was attempting to make the film without his involvement, Menahem Golan sued them, putting a stop to their attempt. Fox stepped in trying to buy the rights to Spider-Man so that Cameron could create it, but were unsuccessful, ending all hope. But by 1995, MGM acquired the rights to the film from 21st Century Film Corporation. Seeing the failure that was Batman and Robin, no one in the industry wanted to adapt comic book characters on the big screen. And due to them failing to make a Spider-Man film by the day Marvel agreed on when they originally sold the rights, they were reverted back to Marvel, who at the time was emerging from bankruptcy. Thankfully, just a year after Batman and Robin came Blade, which did really well at the box office, giving the industry more faith in the genre. Trying to stay afloat after their bankruptcy, and seeing the recent success of a superhero film, Marvel sold the rights to Spider-Man for $7 million to Sony Pictures. In April 1999, Sony hired Sam Raimi to direct their film, and David Coeb to write the screenplay. He was responsible for Peter not getting his suit until later in the movie, so his origin story could be longer, and him and MJ not getting together by the end of the film. He had the Green Goblin as the main antagonist and Doc Ock as the secondary villain. Raimi wanted to focus more on the Green Goblin and had them drop Doc Ock from the film. In 2000, Tobey Maguire was cast as Peter, Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn, and Kristen Dunst as MJ. Stan Lee once again wanted to play the role of J. Jonah Jameson, but was turned down because filmmakers thought he was too old. While digging into the production of the movie, I came across some pretty wild facts. Like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was actually supposed to make a cameo, but they couldn't find his costume in time. Also, Kirsten Dunst was told to straighten her teeth for the role, but she refused and said MJ doesn't need perfect teeth. We also had Willem Dafoe, who I thought was in his 50s or 60s when this came out, but he was only 46, which isn't super young, but he did do all of his own stunts. Every time you see him with his costume, it's actually him underneath the mask. But age is just a number to him because he even did some of his own stunts in No Way Home. And speaking of that movie, Tobey Maguire was the same age that Dafoe was when he played Goblin in 2002. A lot of people know about this next one, but the scene right after he gets his powers and they start acting up in the school cafeteria, Peter catches MJ and her food as she's falling. This scene was actually done without any special effects and took 156 takes and 16 hours to get right. But finally, after years of legal battles and complications, the film released in theaters across the globe. It earned $114 million during its opening weekend, breaking the previous record by almost $25 million. It was the fastest film to reach 100 million and broke way more records to count. At the time, it was the highest grossing superhero movie of all time, taking years to finally be toppled by The Dark Knight. And even to this day, it's still the 6th highest grossing comic book movie of all time. The film directly led to the creation of 2 sequels in the following years. But the effects of this movie were felt throughout the industry for years to come. Every year, there were more and more comic book films coming out and littering the list of highest grossing movies. 3 of the top 10 and 6 of the top 20 highest grossing films being about superheroes. I really enjoyed making this video though. I usually do movie reviews and commentary, but it was fun diving into the history and numbers for this one. If you guys enjoyed it, let me know if I should make more videos similar to this one. I'm thinking of following this video with a recap / commentary on the movie. It came out while I was a baby, but I grew up on this series and was obsessed with Spider-Man. I've probably seen the movie over 20 times, and I would watch it in my Spider-Man PJs and blanket. But thank you for watching, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.
Bye, have a beautiful time!